It's have they ended in the hall? Okay. This is the other slide. The other slide. Yes, the brain economy. Yep. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Uh. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jafri Malin. You're not ready yet? Just wait a moment. We're trying to. Yep. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the organizing committee for allowing us. I will introduce the speakers shortly to be involved in this very interesting topic, the brain economy, the need for Southeast Asia or ASEAN engagement and action. So this is presented during the Federation of ASEAN Economic Associations meeting. This is the 48th conference here in Berjaya Times Square Hotel, and with me on the screen are different speakers. I would like to go to the next slide, please. Can I move? Yeah, it's not moving. Yeah, okay. So I'm the moderator. I'm the fellow of the Academy of Sciences of Malaysia, and we have started an special interest group soon in the field of brain economy. And today with me, I have three eminent speakers. After my short presentation, Professor Rim Ayadi. Professor Rim Ayadi will be talking on a lot of things, very important things. She is the president and founder of the Euro-Mediterranean Economists Association, better known as EMEA. She spearheads the integration of economics, resilience, and brain capital in the Euromed region. As a pathfinder of the WEF Brain Economy Action Forum, she drives global measurement frameworks such as the Brain Capital Dashboard. She will also highlight the G20 Brain Health Ministerial Meeting example of growing high-level momentum. Then after that, I will give a short talk on data about brain health in Southeast Asia, data provided by McKinsey Health Institute. And thereafter, Professor Paweł Świeboda who is a founder of the NeuroCentury, co-founder of the Brain Capital Alliance, a thought leader in neuro innovation and science diplomacy. And I know Professor Paweł very well because he formerly directed the EU Human Brain Project. In fact, with Catherine Emmons, we had published a few papers together. His address will link brain economy framework to economic security and outline public-private philanthropic investment models, example, European Investment Bank, and he will emphasize ASEAN EU collaboration in brain health innovation and policy translation. And the third speaker is Dr. William Hynes. He is a senior climate change economist, World Bank, honorary professor of University College London, fellow of Santa Fe Institute. Dr. Hynes is also a global voice in the new economic thinking, integrating systems and behavioral economics to advance sustainable productivity. This presentation will discuss how brain capital drives productivity, innovation, and resilience, which is one of the motto of this year's meeting in today's conference, connecting human creativity, cognition, and social well-being to next wave of growth and competitiveness. So the panel objective is shown here as seen on the PowerPoint slide. And this is the time allocated. We hope to be able to finish by 4:45 Malaysian time. And this slide shows that, strong brains mean stronger businesses, economy, and societies. And it's time to invest accordingly. The global burden of brain health condition is rising. Even in Southeast Asia, driven in part by aging populations, especially Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand, and societal stresses. At the same time, breakthroughs in neuroscience and technology are creating unprecedented potential to prevent and treat these conditions. And as advances in technology and broader global disruptions reshape our future, the ability to cultivate capabilities like adaptability, empathy, and complex power, problem saving, what we call brain skills, is becoming a defining source of economic relevance. And to meet this moment, we require a new way of thinking in Southeast Asia. We are a masala of different countries with different languages, different cultures, way of thinking, and we must recognize brain health and brain skills as strategic economic assets. What we term as brain capital. Investment in brain capital can unlock significant economic and social returns. For business leaders, a defined brain capital strategy can be a key differentiator to drive productivity, resilience, and competitiveness. So now I would like to invite Dr. Prof. Rim Ayadi to continue with her talk. You may share your slide, Prof. Rim.
Thank you very much, Professor Jafri. Thank you for inviting me to this very important event.
Have you shared your slide? Yeah, good.
Yes.
Fantastic. We see it very clearly.
So let me make sure you have it on a slideshow. Is it on a slideshow? Yes.
Yes.
So just without, thank you again for inviting me for this important event on building ASEAN resilience. I think building brain capital is one of the key pillars for trying really to better understand where we're heading for a resilient socioeconomic model. And then in my speech also, I will allude to the Global Brain Capital Index that we are currently working on. So to introduce myself, I'm Professor Ayadi. I'm the president and founder of the Euro-Mediterranean Economists Association. I'm a professor of financial systems at the City University of London. And I have been working together with all of you here. I see Paweł, William, and also Harris Ayer, together building this brain capital and brain economy within the Brain Capital Alliance, in which I am extremely happy to be co-founder, and also the Brain Economy Hub. So we also are working together with the World Economic Forum as a pathfinder to advance this new thinking on the brain economy and to connect it to economic resilience and prosperity for all the economies. And I think that nowadays, this brain capital, which is the interaction between brain health and brain skills, have gained really great momentum in being introduced into economic policy, and also trying to build what we call the brain plans and brain hubs, not only at a national level, but also at the regional level. So I will share with you where we are in terms of the global evolution, and then I will talk a bit about the Brain Capital Dashboard, which is freely accessible for all the regions of the world, and also a few words on the Brain Capital Index. So brain capital is moving from an idea, from a theoretical idea into a global priority. And this has been a great momentum, as I mentioned, by connecting economists, neuroscientists, and other disciplines to work together to drive this movement. And I'm so happy today to have William and also Paweł, who have been key players in this construction. And also, I would like to pay tribute also to recall the work of Harris Ayer, who has been really instrumental in leading this brain economy. So in recent years, brain capital, in fact, has moved quite rapidly from a lot of research that neuroscientists have been putting together into, as I mentioned, a global economic priority. And we have seen a surge also in visibility with new international initiatives that I can share with you here. The WHO released its first brain health position paper. The G7 hosted the Canada, for example, Brain Economy Summit. The Brain Economy Action Forum by the World Economic Forum has been launched, and also multiple strategy papers have been aligning around the brain economy. And this is important also because the Brain Capital Alliance became a reality, and also the Brain Economy Hub that is really driving and spearheading the overall thinking within this movement. So strong brain, as was mentioned by Professor Jafri, is meaning also strong businesses, strong economies, and societies. And we know nowadays that with the technological advances, the climate change, the global instability that are reshaping, in fact, how we live and how we work in this context, really developing strong cognitive abilities, emotional skills, self-leadership, and also critical thinking and digital fluencies are essential in becoming for individuals and for economic resilience. So in reality, if we connect the two, the brain health and brain skills, and as Professor Jafri mentioned, this becomes really key economic assets that will allow us to drive our economies forward, and also to drive a new paradigm that not only recognizes brain health and skills as investable assets, but at the same time they would be core for economic inclusiveness and resilience. So investing in brain capital not only leads to economic returns and financial returns in terms of also productivity, resilience, creativity, and long-term competitiveness. So brain capital becomes the lever for competitiveness and innovation and increasing productivity. So in reality, this means that there would be an economic and financial tax for not investing in brain capital. And this is what we see here. We can see clearly that if we have a company that has a number of people working, employees, and this company is not investing in brain capital, then the hidden cost can accumulate dramatically in terms of lost productivity, burnout, absenteeism, mental health challenges. But beyond this, skills decay and early retirement. So not investing in brain capital will lead to brain, I would say, deficit and brain drains that will impose huge cost into companies and to our societies. And this is also will be, in fact, essential for all companies and economies to invest, to reduce the potential cost of not paying attention and not emphasizing the importance of brain capital as an investable lever. So here, the action is clear. We must work all together, researchers, companies, policymakers, governments, and also regional players to build this brain capital. Of course, as economists, we know the human capital, but this is not enough because it does not take into account the research on neuroscience that we have achieved over the past 20 years. So in reality, the brain capital is an advancement, an evolution of the human capital theory and index, which will allow to add the brain health as a component. It's not a cost, cost is an asset on which we will be investing from early days, but not only us as individuals, but also our companies and our government. So this is not a cost, is an investable asset which will allow us to enhance as much as possible the benefits for our societies, and also to develop what we call the brain positive transition. And the brain positive transition, this is what we are trying to work with all the players here, as you can see, from private sector to civil society organizations, academics, and so on. And here the 5 core levers that build brain capital. These levers, we've been working together with all the collaborators, including the World Economic Forum partners and also others. First is to study brain capital. So we need rigorous measures in interdisciplinary research and tools that help to understand how brain capital evolves and how it impacts policies. So this is also essential, because to be able to understand the impacts on policies and on our economies, we need to be able to measure with stable tools the brain capital. Second is to invest in brain capital. So we must, of course, fund products and services and systems that improve brain health and skills using innovative financing, like, for example, brain capital bonds or blended finance. And this is possible because, as I mentioned, there should be a clear collaboration between private and public. And then the third lever is to mobilize for brain capital. So, of course, here aligning global actors around a shared vision, and this is being done, hopefully. And this involves also strategic thinking, coalition building, and policy making at the root, so really at the grassroots. And all the players will have to be part of this new thinking. And obviously, the fourth lever is fostering brain skills. And here we must strengthen long life learning, modern skills development, and future readiness for workers and youth over the life span. And finally, and this is essential, is to safeguard brain health and to ensure access to care, promoting lifelong brain wellness, which is the foundational for our brain economy. So these are the levers, and with, of course, we could develop what we call the integrated roadmap for international, regional, and global brain capital strategies. So starting with the measurement, and this is what we at the Euro-Mediterranean Economists Association we've been doing to support countries, regions, and institutions. We have developed the Brain Capital Dashboard. Our paper is published a couple of years ago and was launched at the UNGA, United Nations General Assembly in New York, together with Paweł and other colleagues. And this is really an interactive observatory that aggregates more than 30 years of global indicators that are open access. So it's open access for research, so all researchers can use it. It includes over 60 indicators, more than 24,000 observations, and time series and cross-country comparisons that link also with primary and secondary type of data sources. And the goal really is to give policymakers, researchers, and investors a tool to benchmark brain capital and monitor progress. And this year we are launching the brain capital index, as you can see here. We've been working together on a high-level working group over the last 4 years to design what is this structure of the index, and actually it follows very carefully the structure of the dashboard. We have one pillar, which is the brain capital drivers, for example, health and well-being, public health risk, education and knowledge, economic and cultural development. The second pillar is brain health, which are the absence of mental health disorders, neurological disorders, and mortality and health outcomes too is essential there. And the third pillar is about brain skills, and this one is early childhood development of the skills, learning and skills development, innovation and knowledge creation, and all other subjective well-being and emotional states, which will be part of this. So with all of this, let me try to move this slide here. So we can see that the first pillar, which we have already computed it for 2022, we can see that many countries, especially in the developed countries, the brain capital drivers index is quite high, so the score is much higher. For example, in regions like African regions and other, this is a bit lower because of the potential for investment and the opportunities that all these countries have to develop further the brain capital drivers. So we are also computed the second pillar, which is brain health, and clearly we see that sometimes the developed countries, they have much more, I would say, prevalence of mental disorders, but this is also linked to the fact that in many other countries, like, for example, in Africa and developing countries, the data on prevalence of disorders and neurological disorders are not yet heavily collected. So we need to have much more data collection to be able to assess those pillars. And currently we are working on the brain skills drivers. So with this, I would like to conclude by saying that all this is on the measurement, side, this is still work in progress, and we are working to launch, as I mentioned, the index globally and regionally for January. But this also allows us to rethink, as economists, our models to work in a linear way, and we need to have more dynamic and systemic way of including brain health and brain skills into our economic models and resilience to ensure that we have a credible way to measure productivity and innovation. So thank you very much, and floor to you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, Prof. Rim. So my short presentation also, I would like to acknowledge McKinsey Health Institute and the Academy Sciences of Malaysia for providing the data for today's presentation. So the topic is prioritizing brain health in ASEAN countries. So today or this evening, I would want us all, the participants from the 11 ASEAN countries, to look at us through one simple lens. Not GDP, not infrastructure, but through the human brain. Because a country's future competitiveness sits on cognitive capacity, not just capital infrastructure. Many countries talk about AI readiness, but AI readiness itself depends on human cognitive readiness, ability to learn, adapt, innovate, and brain health is an investment category, not a welfare cost. If we keep treating it as a cost center, we will underinvest and pay the price later. This is why brain capital, brain capacity is the new growth factor. So ASEAN demographic evolution. ASEAN is one of the most dynamic regions in the world. But with this dynamism comes complexity, especially in Southeast Asia. The 11 member states differ widely in terms of population size, urbanization patterns, age structure. For example, Indonesia alone has a population of exceeding 270 million people, where countries like Singapore, Brunei are below 6 million. And Timor-Leste, our youngest country to join ASEAN, has 1.4 million people. 65% of the population are under 30 years of age, and 30% of the population stay in their capital city, Delhi. As for 2025, ASEAN's combined population has reached approximately 695 million, making us the third largest population bloc globally. This population growth has been propelled by natural increase as well as the developmental trajectory of middle-income countries in the region. What does this matter for brain health? A large and youthful population means we must think about early mental health support, education, and preventive interventions. A wide regional spread means access to specialized neurological and psychiatric care may be uneven. Differences in national income influence health system investments, workforce capacity, and policy formulation. Demographics determine demand. And given ASEAN's size, lots of islands, and the demand for brain health services will continue to rise sharply. And here we look at the slide of the life expectancy in ASEAN member states. A major demographic shift the ASEAN must be prepared is for aging, whether we like it or not. As healthcare, education, sanitation, nutrition, and disease control improves over the past 30 years, life expectancy across ASEAN countries increases. By 2023, the region had nearly 60 million people aged 65 and above, making up 8.1% of our total population. And this number is projected to more than double by 2050, possibly reaching 128 to 168 million older adults, depending on the projection models. Longer life is a success story, but it comes with increased prevalence of chronic diseases, especially neurological diseases like dementia, Parkinson's, stroke, and age-related cognitive decline. This means ASEAN countries must start reallocating health resources, strengthening geriatric and neurological services, improve rehab, infrastructure, and investing in early screening and long-term social care systems. Brain health will be one of the main determinants of whether our aging trajectory will be healthy or a disaster. Disease burden, 26%, of ASEAN have this burden. And in ASEAN, almost 1/4 of the entire disease burden comes from brain health issues. If you reframe that, 1 of every 4 units of disease burden is driven by the brain. This means our current health budget actually bleed productivity. And the disability is not just physical. You can't see it because it's not you lose one arm or one leg. It's a silent cognitive, emotional, and behavioral problem, which makes it harder for policymakers to see. Brain health affects employability, stability of the workforce, education outcomes, risk-taking behavior, innovative potential. So brain health is not just a medical statistic. It is a competitiveness variable. And if you can see from this slide, in this region called Southeast Asia, neurology is the dominant driver of diseases. Dementia, migraine, Parkinson's, epilepsy, and stroke. We tend to look at these aging diseases, but stroke affects middle-aged workforce heavily. Migraine affects young adult women, affects the workplace that they work. They are worsens because of their headaches, and this affects performance of the company. The top-down paradigm is still hospital solves it. But if the burden is structural, then the solution must be cross-ministry. Brain health is equal to economic planning and education and welfare and labor policies. The opportunity to intervene early is very important. Mental disorders, substance use, and self-harm peaks early in life at the age of 20 and 30. That is the period where economic contribution is highest in Southeast Asia. And yet the risk to brain health is also highest. If we only intervene at the hospital stage, that's too late. We are just too late. If you want to build brain capital, then the strategy window must move earlier in the life arc. Early detection and early care equal to decades of productivity saved in Southeast Asia. The earlier we move upstream, the cheaper the costs, and larger the economic returns. We already know what works: psychotherapy, early screening, digital therapy, workplace programs. But the problem in ASEAN is adoption and scaling. If we scale proven interventions, we can avert 23 million deaths by 2050. And that alone is enough to change the labor participation rates. Scaling is not about inventing new technology. It is deploying what already exists to reach the people who need it early. Healthcare quality in ASEAN is widely depending on which country, the economic development level, and the investment in health system. Singapore spends about USD 4,000 per capita on healthcare, and different countries spend less. For brain health, especially quality of care is critical because delays in diagnosis or treatment often lead to irreversible impacts. Countries in ASEAN must therefore not only scale up spending, but also strengthen health system governance and service delivery. Medicine is only one component. The largest gain from prevention, behavior change, lifestyle intervention. Food security will improve brain security. Good sleep patterns will improve cognitive capacity. Less stress and loneliness will decrease inflammation and decrease neurological impact to our brain. Brain health is multi-sectorial. Workplace, family systems, schools, diet, digital behavior. We cannot treat brain health in isolation because the brain does not live in isolation. As we see in this slide, if we scale these interventions, the economy grow to 81 billion by 2050. Why? Because we reduce early deaths, we improve productive life years, and we preserve cognitive potential of our children. Brain-based GDP is not a metaphor. It is measurable. The future labor force is not an infrastructure plan. It is a cognitive plan. So this is my last slide. And I will now pass over to Professor Paweł. I will unshare my slide. Professor Paweł, you may bring up your slide. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, Professor Jafri, for having us. Absolutely delighted to be with you and to share the platform also together with my great colleagues and friends, Rim and William. So I will take the arguments further, hopefully linking the brain economy to the needs for investment and also economic security, on which I spent a great deal of time. And the dominant paradigm, which we keep in mind in the brain capital movement, is this transition towards a brain positive economy. So the interesting thing about our contribution to this panel is that it comes from a group of economists who has been involved in conceptualizing brain capital and brain economy. So we feel at home in your setting in Kuala Lumpur, talking to the Southeast Asian economists, and we would really like to have your feedback and input also, because this is very much a movement which is still being formed and is emerging. So the idea of the brain positive economy is really to put forward a new and hopefully refreshing economic framing, given that this is what the current moment of history requires, that we look at sources of positivity rather than sources of risk and vulnerability. I think we have enough of the latter, and the brain economy provides for this, I would say, new and novel approach, how to maximize our collective human potential. So what's new here, I would say, is primarily that we look at the exposome, we look at the totality of factors influencing our health and our behavior and our economic productivity. And we do that throughout the life course. So life cycle approach is absolutely crucial, as I will underline in a second. Now, as already pointed out by Rim, the brain economy movement is growing. Here you have just a visualization of some of our projects around the world. And we would definitely love to have a Southeast Asian stream of activity contributing to what we have on the agenda. By the way, Professor Jafri, when you said adoption and scaling is a big challenge in the region, that's exactly what we keep on hearing in other parts of the world as well. We literally had a couple of days ago a very interesting roundtable, and Rim took part in it, on AI and digital tools in the European context. And guess what came up as a major pain point? Adoption and scaling. So we can come back to that because that's a common challenge. We have one annual point in time when we gather our thoughts and review our agendas. This is the Brain Economy Summit in New York, which takes place in September of each year. You see in front of you on the screen from this year's edition, but we would definitely very much like to have you involved in this discussion in September 2026. As far as I am concerned, I think we need to formulate a proposition which has strong elements of positivity. So I will come back to brain disorders. We cannot depart from those. They are our biggest challenge, but we also need to look at human flourishing and productivity. And this is what the brain economy provides for. So for me, the starting point is the definition of brain health, which interestingly only emerged recently. For those of you in the room who have maybe not followed the evolution over the years, we have had a fairly fragmented approach to neurological and psychiatric disorders over the years. And it's only in the last decades when the thinking became to converge around this concept of brain health. And the World Health Organization put together a blueprint in 2022, so literally 3 years ago, defining brain health as a state of brain functioning across cognitive, sensory, social, emotional, behavioral, and motor domains, allowing a person to realize their full potential. And I think we can use that definition of brain health and translate it into what the brain economy would require. Therefore, the brain economy then becomes a dynamic equilibrium across social and economic domains that maximizes collective human potential. And we start to see the expressions of that primarily in the workplace. The workplace is where most of us spend a good deal of our time, to put it mildly. And we need to have a brain-friendly workplaces in order to maximize that positive impact. So we are now studying what it would take to achieve such brain-friendly workplaces. And one of the pathways would be to define individual cognitive and behavioral characteristics and requirements. We also very much focus at the moment at developing the concept of brain skills labs. So labs where you would see the definition of the various cognitive, creative, social, and emotional skills which are needed for the workforce to develop their productivity. In conjunction with the rapid development of AI, one can speak of hybrid intelligence. And hybrid intelligence is basically about making the best and the most out of what the machine provides and what the human can provide. But the idea here is also to optimize for productivity. And we can see from the early research on the subject, which is emerging, that productivity is at its highest when you have an effective human-AI collaboration. And therefore, what it poses as a challenge to our movement is, well, how to shape this hybrid intelligence in a concrete and tangible fashion through various trainings and retraining programs. As I said, even with utmost positivity, you cannot forget about the challenge of brain disorders. And as Professor Jafri already pointed out, that challenge is large and growing bigger. What many people wouldn't know is that in terms of DALYs, brain disorders are often a larger challenge than cancer and cardiovascular disease. It obviously varies from country to country, but generally we can see that the prevalence of brain disorders is higher in older age. So with the aging of populations, we will have higher prevalence. Brain disorders, importantly, are not a disease of old age. That needs to be emphasized, but their prevalence is high in old age. So demography does pose a large challenge. And the figures that have been calculated for the loss of economic potential are staggering: $3.46 trillion US dollars annually at the societal level. As I mentioned, what we have in front of our minds is all the time the exposome, the totality of impacts on the brain, be it socioeconomic, be it ecological and climate related. And the second important dimension is the life course. And here you can see a visualization of what it takes in terms of the impact on our brains from early days, poverty, housing, early stress exposure, all the way to social exclusion and other risk factors later in age. And I mention risk factors because we have a growing body of knowledge at the moment about those with respect to various brain disorders. One very important point of reference is the Lancet Commission on Dementia, which has at the moment identified 14 modifiable risk factors. And so they are responsible, as the Lancet Commission argues, for 45% of dementia. So 45% of dementias can be prevented if we address these 14 modifiable risk factors. Sometimes they are they are ones which apply to other health issues, and sometimes they're brain specific. The importance of sleep is, for example, very much brain specific. Sometimes you also find very surprising challenges among those risk factors. For example, hearing loss is an important risk factor for dementia. And interestingly, it takes people up to 10 years to address the hearing loss. So this underlines the significance of acting early, acting on the basis of an aggregate body of knowledge about modifiable risk factors, and of course, relying a lot on risk stratification, because we need to identify those individuals who are more at risk of developing disorders. Breakthroughs in brain science and brain health are very significant. I tend to look at the case of multiple sclerosis because this is where there was no medicine 30 years ago. And today we have 30 disease-modifying treatments. What is more, the community of multiple sclerosis scientists is talking about pathway to cure. So what's interesting here is the level of ambition. Yes, there is already a lot of breakthrough in disease-modifying approaches, but the community wants to go all the way towards cure. And I think that is the type of ambition which you see also in other brain disorders. Since we are in a setting of economists, we tend to look at what approaches can drive innovation. One approach which I feel very strongly about is a platform approach. It's a platform approach that looks specifically at pre-competitive advances. Neurotechnology is one example where breakthroughs can benefit from a pre-competitive sharing of knowledge and expertise. Largely because it is one of the most interdisciplinary domains you can find in the field of innovation. And therefore, there is a benefit to be gained from sharing of the early gains and foundations in order to then compete on the market on this basis. So I put together a small blueprint called Wired for the Future, which I would definitely invite you to look into, which conceptualizes this platform approach to pre-competitive innovation. In the interest of time, I will maybe skip what I wanted to say about the importance of early childhood interventions, because what I really wanted to underline here is the investment potential. Again, we are in a group of economists. The importance of early childhood interventions has been by now well established. But what is also very important is the market size, projected to grow from about $250 billion US dollars in 2022 to 470 in 2030. So whenever you take a slice of the brain economy fields, such as investment in early childhood, you see that there is an enormous market potential. Of course, this will not happen by itself. You need a conjunction of interventions from governments, from edtech expansion. You need raising awareness also of early cognitive development, but nevertheless, the potential is huge. And this is where we focus a lot of our activities. And I want to highlight here a foresight discussion that we have held with the European Investment Bank. That's what you can see on the left-hand side here. European Investment Bank is the world's largest multilateral bank. It's a developmental bank, so it focuses very much on investments in infrastructure, for example, in health infrastructure, but it's also a bank that supports innovation and has a venture work stream that is of interest to the brain economy community. We have also held recently consultation on a new approach called brain lens investing. So we would like to enlarge the approach to both core issues covered under the brain economy concept, but also to those which are related and where the positivity of the brain economy transition can gain from further investments, and that's the brain lens approach. Again, when you look at what needs to be done in brain disorders from an economist perspective, you need to focus, first of all, on issues of highest impact. And there are several of those, from stroke to Alzheimer's, depression, anxiety, and headache disorders. That's where you have potentially the highest return on investment if you succeed in addressing these challenges. So again, an economist would inevitably and immediately look at those areas where the return on investment is potentially highest. We have a number of stakeholders in this discussion that concerns investment. And of course, we are also trying to discuss with the investment community the concept of the brain economy, ideally leading to a situation in which this would be seen as a new investment class. This has worked in green investing to date. The concept of green bonds is a testimony to that. And ideally, we would like to also conceptualize the brain economy, brain capital investment as a separate investment class. This would help people to understand what it is that they are doing and pursuing, and potentially what returns on investment would be. In the field of innovation, we have seen a number of centers of excellence emerge globally. And what we are now focusing upon is ways of linking those activities so as to create a critical mass globally. And here again, it would be of great interest to identify the innovation hubs in Southeast Asia so that they can become part of this emerging global hub of hubs. Now, before I end, I want to say a few words about economic security, because this is a concept I spend a lot of my time studying and exploring. It is the new paradigm, whether we like it or not. It is a paradigm that will be with us for the time to come. I define it as maximizing value creation while preventing vulnerabilities and reducing risks from global tensions. A lot of the debate is focused on the latter, meaning the reduction of risks and vulnerabilities, whether it has to do with supply chains, whether it has to do with some of the critical raw materials. But to me, the brain economy is a new generation economic security measure, because it is very much focused on strengthening nations' resilience. So yes, looking after supply chains may be an immediate intervention that is needed in a situation in which there are obvious imbalances globally. But brain economy is going further. It provides for stronger societal and economic resilience. And I will end by saying that this really takes us to what we can think of as a new decade of the brain. I say a new decade of the brain because George Bush Sr., when he began his presidency, he called 1990s a decade of the brain. So it's not the first decade of the brain, but it's a new decade of the brain because there are demographic pressures which will change the conversation enormously. We have a demographic tsunami coming our way, and policymakers are definitely not integrating that insight into their equation. We also have a growing public interest in good brain health. I find a lot of positivity in conversations with communities that are active in this field, and we need to build on that as well. We need to build on breakthroughs, on precision and personalized medicine, which is slowly but inevitably becoming a standard of care in neurology and psychiatry. And the brain economy provides a framing for all those actions, focused very much on maximizing collective human potential. So I think we will come to see the 2020s as a new decade of the brain when we meet in Kuala Lumpur, hopefully in person in a few years' time, to look back at these developments. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Paweł. Now I would like to invite Dr. William Hynes to continue with his very interesting topic, and do listen to him. And you can load up your PowerPoint, Dr. William.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully you can see my screen. Thanks so much for inviting me. And
yeah, we
sorry,
hear you.
Professor Jeff.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. You're loud and clear. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thanks so much for inviting me. And it was already great to listen to the presentations. Really interesting work that's going on. And thanks to Paweł Rim and, of course, Harris Eyre, who's an important figure in driving this discussion. So the dimension that I'm going to take on this is to look at brain capital and the brain economy through the lens of new economic thinking, and to how the thinking about the economy has changed in recent years, And then I'll talk a bit about new ideas in productivity. So the starting point is that there's a lot of reflection going on about the economy. And this quote is from Bob Shiller, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics at one point. And he basically talks about three devices: the economy, the brain, and the computer. And each of these is essentially trying to solve fundamental information problems, coordinating the activities of individual units, the neurons, the transistors, or individual people. And as we improve our understanding of the problems that any of these devices solves and how it overcomes obstacles in doing so, we learn something valuable about all three. So we really, in this agenda, are trying to understand the brain, both individually and in terms of its societal impacts. We're understanding technology and how that's changing the fundamental nature of humanity itself, you could say, but also economic activity. And then the economy, how we organize our different economic activities. And so I'm going to talk about three things. First, how this agenda is part of a broader look at systemic resilience. Second, how I think it is a new economic paradigm and has very strong narrative and moral and ethical underpinning, and brings new models to the fore. And then finally, a look at productivity in ASEAN. And I don't think that this agenda really requires us to throw out what we knew. It really supplements and broadens some of the frameworks that we're using and how we think about productivity. So we are living in a global society, and of course the ASEAN region knows it well, that we're subject to all of these shocks, which tend to compound each other. We have economic shocks, we have technological, we have health with the recent pandemic. And of course, we have the mounting geophysical, climate, and nature risks. And this is all part of a very complex global economy where we have millions of firms, billions of workers and consumers all interacting. And what emerges from that is sometimes a stable economy, but also one subject to a whole range of shocks. And so what this brain economy agenda is doing is, I think it's bringing more of a scientific understanding of people, of agents, of their interaction, and what emerges from that. And we need new tools, we need new models, and we need new concepts to do that. And you heard a lot from Rem and Paweł about the emerging field and what that looks like. And I think we do have to start with the individual and psychological resilience. And this is really a key part of understanding how the economy works. There was recent research that suggested that the declining productivity in the UK was actually driven by poor health outcomes. And so this is not a separate part of the system that we can just add on to our understanding of the economy. It's actually quite integral. And so brain health, physical health, these are really important. And then again, we saw during the COVID pandemic just the importance of psychological factors and just how big an economic impact all of these things could have. And again, Paweł has talked in detail about this. But all of this is based on the way we understand and the way we've organized and managed the global economy. And so ASEAN is very much connected to global value chains. And this is a good example of how we've tried to optimize the economic system, but that optimization has come at a cost for the resilience of the system. We've created brittle systems that are prone to failure. And value chains, we used to mostly organize in terms of a pyramid structure, which each tier in the production process would be able to rely on multiple suppliers. And so if a supplier went down because of a typhoon or a value chain disruption, you could simply switch to another supplier. But that has redundancy in the system, but isn't necessarily resilient, isn't efficient. So we moved more to a diamond structure, where now each tier you're relying on single providers, and each tier is dependent on that. And so if a provider goes down, you don't have a linear disruption to the system. You have this non-linear cascading shock to the system. And so this is integration. This is efficient, but unfortunately, it's not very resilient. So we need to think about people and the systems that we have in a more resilient way. This is also a period of transition in terms of technology with the AI economy, but also in terms of climate. And in the energy systems, we have entered this period of the mid-transition, where we have the fossil fuel economy and the renewables economy that coexists. And this is generating a lot of instability and uncertainty. We have demand and supply shocks to the system. And the investment needs are enormous. It's estimated by the IEA that we need about $4 trillion per year to build up the renewables part of the economy, the solar, wind, etc. But we also need about $1 trillion per year to keep the fossil fuel economy going because of energy security needs and because of transition risks. So these sort of problems, whether technology or climate, it requires that we really put our best foot forward in terms of the capabilities and the cognitive strengths that we have to manage and deal with these problems. And we've already broken the world, essentially, during the global financial crisis. In the New York Times, Thomas Friedman said, we broke the world. And why? Was essentially because of an economic idea around efficiency. And we steadily removed these man-made and natural buffers, redundancies, regulations, and norms that provide resilience and protection when big systems get stressed. And so we removed these out of an emphasis on short-term efficiency and growth. And so I think this whole brain economy movement maybe helps us think about these issues in new ways and places systemic resilience rather than trying to optimize the system. And optimization is important. It's important that we optimize. But again, while it's central in economic thinking, natural scientists would say that if you try to optimize complex systems, you can make them unstable, just as we saw with the value chain example, but also in other natural and biophysical systems. So we need to think not just in preparing and planning for different shocks, but we also need to prepare the system for the ability to absorb shocks when it happens. And policymakers, I think, are very much well aware of the need to prepare and absorb shocks, but perhaps less adept at making sure the system is recoverable and can adapt, that you don't just get the same system back after shock, but it adapts and you can bounce forward. So that's the importance of resilience. Second is, where does brain economy stand as a kind of new paradigm for thinking about economics? And Stan Bowles has 4 elements that you need for a successful paradigm. The first is you need an ethical foundation. Second is there needs to be an economic model. Third is emblematic policies. And then you need a good narrative. You need to be able to convince people and politicians that this all makes sense. And so we've seen different paradigms that have had these different elements. So if we think about Keynesian social democracy, the normative foundation, the ethical dimension, is that it's based on solidarity, fairness. The economic model was well established based on aggregate demand, solidarity, wages, etc. The policies are typical demand management, tax transfer and public goods redistribution. And then the narrative is essentially fairly familiar, that well-paid workers sustain demand. Savings is prudent for a family, but not for a government when the economy is in recession. And then neoliberalism is, again, more of a market-led development goal, so based on freedom in terms of ethics. The model based on self-interest and competitive markets. The policies are more laissez-faire, letting the market guide decisions in the economy. And then the narrative is that government that governs best governs least. So if we're to think about the brain economy in terms of these categories, I think it's got a very strong normative foundation, because essentially it's about helping individuals, communities, countries to maximize their potential, to use their abilities and capabilities while maximizing their brain capital. The economic model, we see elements of that starting to come together, but one very much based on moving beyond optimization and more thinking about how we manage these complex systems, and starting with human physiology, and then thinking about its implications in terms of the systems we build and how those are managed. In terms of emblematic policies, we've heard a lot of those, education, health, managing technology, all a pretty rich policy agenda that I think is taking shape around brain capital. And then the narrative, I think, is also pretty strong, that it's really about not just getting structural policy settings right in our economy, and then through self-interest in markets, the whole thing self-organizes in a way that's good for growth. But it's really about understanding individuals and maximizing their capabilities, ensuring they're healthy, and then this aggregates up to something positive. I might just skip the different camps of economic thinking that have emerged since the global financial crisis, but just to say, I think that brain economy, you could think of it as being just adjusting or adapting the old narrative and the old model, or you could think of it as a more radical reframing of the field of economics, which is really driven by understanding of complex systems, evolutionary approaches, behavioral and institutional, and using the tools and techniques, and of course the science of other disciplines to really help us understand what's going on. So let me move to just a short discussion about productivity. If we think about the ASEAN region, it's been growing in productivity, or output per worker, and is starting to become competitive in certain activities and certain value chains. But increasingly, as we move to more of a knowledge-based economy, just putting stuff together, low-end manufacturing, that's perhaps not going to be a very productive way forward. And so building up these knowledge industries, creative industries, and that part of what we call the brain economy is going to be an increasingly important part of this discussion. And how you do that, I think some elements of that have come out today. And then we have, oh, I can't actually see what this is. Sorry. Yeah, we have different ways of measuring this. And this, I think, is patents. But we see that increasingly in some countries, there's been some growth in the knowledge industries and the role that they play in that. But if you compare it to other countries in the region, it's dwarfed by China, which is increasingly competitive, but also Korea and Japan, which have longstanding advantages in this area. Okay, and then we have education investment. And that's, you can see ASEAN lags behind in investing in education. And this is also in terms of GDP, where it's a bit better using this metric. But as Paweł said, there are things that we don't typically think of in productivity. Productivity is often thought of in economics as just getting structural policy settings right, flexibility in labor markets, competitiveness in product markets, and functioning financial markets, and then the system self-organizes. But I think it would be a surprise for economists if you said that maybe the best thing you could do to boost your productivity in the long run was to invest in early childhood development and education. And that's where markets don't often play a role, and it's more of a social thing. And this social dimension to productivity, I think, is really important. And again, this brain economy idea puts these ideas on the table in very useful ways. I'm not sure why the titles are not appearing here, so I'm not quite sure what this is. Yeah, this is air pollution. And so air pollution is, again, something that we haven't really thought of in productivity, that actually these pollutants and plastics and things like that, which the brain economy movement has been really strong on. These sort of things are not externalities. These actually do affect individual experience and the productivity of workers. So pollution is important. And yeah, we also heard from Jafri that we need to factor into productivity also the brain health issues. And we see in ASEAN countries the different disorders, and you can see that they're in most countries in the region they're pretty stable, but we see this uptick due to COVID of anxiety and depressive disorders. So again, that shows the fragility of our societies, that these shocks can occur, and it really affects people. Okay, so let me conclude by saying that productivity is still really an important thing. And although concepts like flourishing and well-being are really important, we still have to think about productivity and maybe think of it in broader ways, but it needs to start with understanding people and how they react. The economy is changing, and so they need new skills, they need new capabilities, but how they react is really important. And we see in the green economy, for example, that the skills requirements of green jobs and what we called brown jobs, but don't use that term so often now. The skills are pretty similar, but the problem is that the industries are not co-located. And it's actually very hard for people to move because we operate within a social environment. It's the same with picking up new skills. Most skills are provided within the context of firms. And so retraining is really difficult to do if you've lost your job or you're in a declining region or industry. So how people are adaptable to these things is not a small part of the productivity problem. It's actually a very significant part. So yeah, in productivity, people embedded in their social environment, it's a hugely important aspect of how we can change our thinking about productivity. And then, yeah, we need to really think about the neuroscientific drivers of productivity, because traditionally they're not really identified. And so an agenda around brain health and brain skills, this is going to be, I think, quite central as we move into this more fast-changing, complex and knowledge-based economy where artificial intelligence is important, but natural intelligence is still going to be really central. Okay, and yeah, we also have other problems of information which are also to the fore, and this agenda can help us really engage with them, with information and misinformation and cognitive processes involved. So we have a big job. I think economists and neuroscientists need to work together as well as others. And it's really impressive hearing from Rim and Paweł about the range of stakeholders and institutions that have been brought together around this vision. I think from a knowledge and scientific point of view, this agenda really makes a lot of sense. But it's a real challenge to change mindsets around these things, and we tend to be dominated in policy by analytical thinking, where we take big problems and we break them up into smaller problems, then we optimize around those parts, but then we never put it back together. And so this systemic way of thinking that the brain economy gives us, I think is going to be quite useful. But thanks so much for your attention. Look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor William Hynes. It's now question and answer time, and Professor Rim Ayadi has to rush off to another meeting. But before that, I want her to answer one very important question is, how can collaboration among ASEAN, so we have about 200 people listening to you today from the 11 countries, how can collaboration among ASEAN, EMEA, European Union, and World Economic Forum fast-track implementation, Professor Rim Ayadi?
Thank you, Professor Jafri. I know that I'm a bit on the rush this morning. So this is a key question. And first of all, I would like to go back to the global dashboard. First, we need to start measuring. So building a regional dashboard for ASEAN, interoperable with the health and SDG goals and post-SDG goals. This is important to also put ASEAN in the center of discussion for post-SDG sustainable development goals and anchoring brain and brain economy within this future thinking, as was also mentioned by Paweł and William, with really we need to go beyond data collection and also we need to focus on equity focus. So we need to have an equity focus, and also this data is not just for data to measure outcomes, but also for policy use. Now, you mentioned how ASEAN could collaborate. First, in my view, start really aligning the thinking toward brain economy and brain capital within an economic thinking, which was very nicely outlined by William, trying to think which are really the fundamentals, the underpinning for ASEAN region on how to really, if they are of course interested, to move into this new paradigm anchored in the brain. So the idea is to try to start thinking about this, of course, and having a task force to develop a shared regional roadmap and integrate the brain capital into a policy framework. And I would even add that this should be even centered on innovation and thinking about new technologies to boost innovation and productivity, aligned with what was said before. Now, obviously, collaboration with other regions of the world is essential, although we are moving into fragmentation, but I assume that there should be willingness between the different regional players to work together in a trustworthy fashion. And this collaboration could be with the European Union, with the African Union, with the Union for the Mediterranean, and other, eventually other regions, to team up on this thinking of brain. Of course, we are trying to do a lot of work from Paweł, William, and myself and Harris in other regions too in the United States, and then really trying to develop what we call the brain capital corridors for innovation and for enhancement of productivity and competitiveness. So it's really focused on enhancing innovation and competitiveness. And these corridors will allow us to learn from each other, from different regions, and exchange experiences on neuroscience, on skill development, lifelong learning. And I think this, as I mentioned, studying the brain capital for productivity and innovation, we need to further create and collect data and evidence and indexes to understand the workforce capability, the learning outcomes, the skills trajectories, the mental health burdens, why there is this sudden increase, for example, in mental disorders and depression, for example, and how to factor, how these factors in fact boost productivity or reduce productivity. If we understand this, we are able really to boost our economies altogether and to increase the growth patterns, which are subdued if we see the trends nowadays.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the participants? Yeah, there's a Slido there, I think, that you have to put your questions, and while waiting for your questions to come up, we have another 10 more minutes, about 10 to 15 more minutes. I would like to ask Paweł and Williams about this question. What institutional or financing mechanism should underpin a regional brain economic hub in ASEAN countries? Can either William and or Paweł answer this question?
Well, I think I'm going to take a hospital pass to Paweł on that one.
Okay.
So,
I think when it comes to the institutional underpinnings for the investment agenda, it very much is a function of the convergence of interests and objectives among countries in the region, right? I mean, that's where one needs to start to build a functioning financial architecture. What we can definitely share from experience in other regions is that we ought to build unconventional coalitions very often, meaning coalitions which go beyond the usual approaches where a lot of laborious efforts are needed in order to work out joint projects. So what we do in the brain economy movement is really to work across the field from the promotional and developmental banks, which are very important, all the way to venture capital, because you need the involvement of all of these stakeholders for a dynamic financing environment that can advance the brain economy agenda. Promotional developmental banks are of utmost interest to us, and I would also encourage you to look at how they can be involved in the emerging architecture in the Southeast Asian region, because they, I would say, share the underlying objectives that we have on our agenda. And some of their financial instruments are also very well aligned with what needs to happen in the brain economy fields. So as an example, the European Investment Bank does finance infrastructural developments which are needed in order to get the level of readiness in place for large-scale prevention efforts. You do need both scanning infrastructure. You need to also have the infrastructure for the early administration of new interventions. So that's what developmental promotional banks can provide. But at the other end of the spectrum, you also need the involvement of venture capital, because discovery science is a large part of the answer to the brain economy challenge as well, and we need to scale up discovery science investment as well. One example of that type of activity is the Dementia Discovery Fund, established over 10 years ago as a result of G7 presidency of the UK. And the DDF, the Dementia Discovery Fund, invests in novel paradigms. So going beyond the amyloid plaque paradigm in Alzheimer's disease. And what they do also is they a lot of the times scout out for excellent science and create companies on that basis. So if I'm not mistaken, they have 19 companies in their portfolio at the moment, half of which have been created from scratch. So I'm saying this because one needs to have a full spectrum of approaches from developmental promotional banks on the one hand, all the way to venture capital on the other.
Okay, thank you. We have many questions, but because we have only 5 more minutes, so if policies to improve brain economy are implemented now, how long will it take for benefits to materialize? William or Paweł? How long? Especially in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, I think just to link that to the previous discussion, a lot of what we're talking about here are existing policies and investing in education and health and all of these things. That's public resources, and with limited fiscal space and different trade-offs between spending. I think what's important here is that we have the full narrative of about why these things are important. And they're not just to improve health, but actually, as we're saying, it actually improves the productivity of the economy. But this is really a long-term agenda. This is investing in people at very early ages and through the life course. And so I don't think we would see an immediate impact. This is long-term. And it's continuous. It's not just something that you would do over a few years and then you're in the brain economy. It's a continuous way of upgrading individuals, improving their health and skills. And so I think this is going to be a big issue about how you measure the impact of this, because its impact is systemic and it will gradually improve things and help countries navigate strategically through higher value chains and economic activities. But it's not an easy agenda. It's not easily achieved in the short run.
Yeah. Last question. We have 4 more minutes. How can we ensure that brain economy agenda is not hijacked by geopolitical and geoeconomics interests? This is a tricky question.
It's a tricky question, but also I think a very important one. And I think the reassuring answer here is that it's very much a bottom-up agenda as we speak, and that's the beauty of it. Of course, we do seek traction at the political level, because otherwise it's always difficult to go from A to B and achieve results. However, there is definitely the underlying momentum which comes from the community of researchers, scientists, investors, economists, who are observing the need for the brain economy paradigm. And therefore, at the moment, I do not see any risk whatsoever of this agenda being hijacked by broader interest. And I think we do have a level of immunity also developed against such possible attempts. And the strongest immunity comes from this very fact that the agenda is being developed bottom up. It is, by the way, also a very new concept. So that's why we would strongly encourage you to get involved with Harris, Rim, William, myself. I think the contacts can be shared. And the way we work is also that because we don't cover all the disciplines among ourselves as we speak, we have seen different communities emerge within the brain economy movement. One example is a community of architects and designers who are working on the brain-friendly places. And this movement is actually growing very dynamically, but it's self-organized and it is bottom-up. Therefore, I think this is our strongest type of vaccination against any attempt to be influenced by geopolitical interest. But again, having said that, we do seek to place the brain economy objectives on the political agenda. One example is an interaction that we are currently having with the new G7 France leadership team. So we would like to have, inspired by what happened 10 years ago with respect to dementia, we would like to see G7 France develop an interest in the brain economy agenda, because we do need new instruments, new funding arrangements and all that. So this should not be mistaken for any risk of the agenda being hijacked. I think the immunity is strong enough.
Thank you, Paweł, for such wise words. It's now 4:50, and I think we had a great session with people coming so far from the European Union. And I know if we can applause, I don't know whether you can hear us clapping. It's me only clapping, but I think the people in the hall are clapping as well. And thank you, Rim. Thank you, Paweł. Thank you, Williams, for such important information and beautiful slides. I hope you can share the slides with us. And I hope we will see you again some other time in the future where you will talk to the Southeast Asian economists so that we can really establish this in this country called ASEAN. Thank you very much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. So video pun boleh off. Okay.